Because in the higher planetary systems, there is so much joy and so much carelessness that there is not necessarily an impetus for improvement. You know? Like when you are on holidays, you're not necessarily in stress to find a new job. You know? You're just on holidays. You know? And if you have trouble, you know, if you are living in Bahnhof Zoo and are an addict, you also don't have many, you know, prospects what you want to achieve in life. You know? So in a similar way, the higher planetary systems, the lower planetary systems are either, you know, too good or too bad that it's difficult to make progress. You know? But in the middle planetary systems, it's considered to be a very good situation, actually. You know? We have relatively short lives, but not too short. You know? There is suffering, you know, there is enjoyment, and it's balanced in such a way that you can actually introspect and say, well, maybe there is something. Vishnu appears in the sacrificial arena, and then Prithu Maharaj, who, you know, enacted and conducted the ceremony, he offers prayers. So these prayers are very, very, very valuable and very, yeah, interesting to read. And I think it starts in verse 20-something, 26 or 25. 23. So verse 23 until verse 30. Yeah, 32. So it's not such a big area, but there are many, many interesting topics. So I just wanted to quickly go through a few of these prayers. So one of the first points he made is that he's not interested in merging into the existence of the Lord. And he says what he prefers is the nectarian existence of drinking the nectar of the Lord's lotus feet. So it's a little bit abstract if you hear of this for the first time. But it's a very important topic. So Prithu Maharaj makes it very clear that he is, like many transcendentalists, monists, many philosophers also, they think that the ideal situation is oneness, you know, ultimate oneness, to merge with everything. Everything becomes one. And this can be called Mayavadi or Brahmavadi. And Prithu Maharaj is saying that actually he doesn't want to have that child, Mahaprabhu. But of course, in general terms, it does not refer. Prithu Maharaj is not meaning that he wants to lick directly. You know, if he would get a chance, for sure he would. You know, take the offer. But generally speaking, it means that when you take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, or we drink the nectar of his lotus feet, it means that we appreciate him as a person. For a devotee of the Lord, the worst nightmare, would be to merge with the Lord, to become one with the Lord. And I mean, I can just extreme example could come to my mind. Like if you love somebody, you don't want to be dissolved into one unit. I don't know how, but or you both travel into the deep sea, and you both just merge with the ocean, and your bodies disappear, and you're one now. So, in a similar way, somebody who has devotion, a devotee, does not want this, you could say, spiritual oneness, actually. And many devotees even express that they would prefer to be in hellish conditions than to merge with the energy of the Lord. They want to keep this individual identity in relationship with the Lord. And this is also exemplified in, there is, I forgot, in one Purana there is this ladder explained. I read about it recently again, but my Kali Yuga brain forgot again. But there is this explanation that if you take as one unit of happiness a healthy man who is the ruler of the world, of the planets. So he's healthy, he is powerful, he's good looking, he's popular, It's a cool position, Imagine you can do good to the entire world, and the whole world likes what you're doing. Within Svarga, of course, there is Indra, who is the king of, the leader of the Devatas, of 35 million different demigods. So he is extremely powerful, he enjoys a lot of influence, power, and all kinds of, you could say, benefits. But his happiness, if you take it as a unit, in Brahma Loka, which is the highest planet, people experience that same happiness just by looking at each other. And then, of course, within Brahma Loka, we have Brahma himself, who is the head of the universe. His life duration equals the life duration of the universe, so he's the boss of the universe. His happiness pales in comparison to Brahmanda or Brahmananda. So Brahmananda, Jadananda, and Premananda. These are the three different types of happiness described. Jadananda is the happiness of the material world, and the highest form of material happiness would be the experience Brahma has. Brahma is so powerful. He has so much influence, such longevity. His body is described to be made of pure intelligence. We described how our body fits this planet. So that means that the composition of the atmosphere of the planet will reflect in our bodies. So the planet is mainly made out of water. A lot of humidity, and so our bodies also. Mainly water, some earth, etc. The 5 elements. But beyond the 5 gross elements, we also have the 3 subtle elements: the mind, intelligence, and ego. So depending what planet you're born in, your body has, a corresponding composition. Brahma's body is made of pure intelligence. So this is the highest form of Jadananda. Jadananda means pleasure derived from sensual and mental, intellectual experience. Everything you relish through the 8 material elements. Happy means you have no desires anymore. As long as you have desires, means there's a position of unrest, Something is lacking, something is what you're still hankering for. A higher position is when you transcend material necessities and you are truly free. So that's Brahmananda. Brahmananda, impersonal liberation. And Prithu Maharaj is saying he doesn't want that. He wants Premananda. And Premananda is pure love of God, a personal relationship with the Lord. And there is the doubt, that any personal relationship must be material. If there is person involved, if there is a relationship involved, it must be material. It must be Jadananda, basically. But there is, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the very famous Atmarama verse. This Atmarama verse explains that somebody who is already transcendent, like in this case specifically Shukadeva Goswami, or later on also the example of the 4 Kumaras is given, they are absolutely self-sufficient for their happiness. This is called Atmarama, when you are not dependent on anything to be happy. Just by yourself, in your self-realization, and in your transcendental consciousness, you're happy. You don't need anything external. Such personalities became completely attracted and, excited upon either smelling flowers and tulasi leaves offered to the Lord, or hearing about the pastimes of the Lord. So this Atmarama verse explains, or you could say metaphysically proves, that the personal form of the Lord is superior to Brahman, and it's no material. It has no material quality. You could say it's like if you want to prove that you are a good cook, and many TV shows are made around this, they invite a very good famous cook, and if he approves of your cooking, direct loving relationship, personal relationship with the Lord. And then another part of these prayers is where he talks about Goddess Lakshmi. Here he says, "My dear Lord of the universe, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, who's of course the wife or consort of Lord Vishnu, is the mother of the universe, and yet I think that she may be angry with me because of my intruding upon her service and acting on that very platform to which she is so much attached." And in the previous verse she said, "Now I wish to engage in the service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to serve just like the goddess of fortune who carries a lotus flower in her hand. Because His Lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities, I am afraid that the goddess of fortune and I would quarrel, because both of us would be attentively engaged in the same service." So he's going, so it's much deeper now, and not only once he tastes the nectar of his lotus feet, but now he's saying, Lakshmi, of course, is famous for being the personality who's always attending the lotus feet of the Lord. So he's saying, if I also want to do the same, maybe Lakshmi Devi would quarrel with me. And this is a very nice sentiment. And in reality, of course, we understand that the Lord has the ability to fulfill and reciprocate all relationships. So this is the definition we learn from Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that the definition of the Lord, the ultimate definition of God, is Akila Rasa Amrita Murti. So the Lord is Akila. Akila means, if you look in the Sanskrit dictionary, it has dozens and dozens of different English translations. It means complete, it means perfect, it means fulfilled, it means, rasa means flavor or taste, and specifically here, of course, flavor or taste in relationships. Amrita means two things. It means nectar, it's something which is very delicious, but also literally it means something which is immortal. Amrita, no death. And then murti means person, or murtaye. Murti, we know the word murti because we call our deities murtis. And this is something very interesting also. Murti does not mean statue. Some people think murti means statue. I forgot, I don't know what the word for statue is in Sanskrit. But murti does not mean statue. Murti means manifestation of a mood, of a certain quality. So murtaye means, Nrsingadev now is in a very specific murti. He's peaceful, he's giving abhaya mudra, don't be fearful, and he's also giving protection and care to Prahlad. This is a very specific murti. Yes?
The Sanskrit for statue is pratima.
Pratima, yeah, thank you, exactly, yeah. So pratima. Murti means the very specific character of the Lord is captured. So, or you might have, Krishna playing the flute, So different murtis are different aspects or moods of the Lord captured. So Akrila Rasamrita Murti means that the Lord can take any form, any murti, all kinds of different, you could say, forms, situations, and reciprocate fully, Akila, to any rasa, to any hankering we might have, any hankering for any form of flavor, be it service or protection or conjugal love even, or parental love, friendship. So yes, the Lord is Akila Rasa Amrita Murti, is the personification, that person who is not limited in reciprocating with anything we hanker. And that's of course also one of the main points to understand that the Lord is different to a material relationship. Because in material relationships, we always will be at one point or other frustrated. Even the person is very good, maybe for some reason the person at one point is distracted and not paying full attention to you, for example. And if this happens often enough, you're like, does this even person care about me? No attention, no attention given. Or people pretend to be something they're not, and then you realize, you realize their deceit, you realize they're actually hiding something from you. Or we have a very high expectation, and the moment you are more intimate with this person, you realize this person is not that what I thought. So in all kinds of personal relationships we have, unfortunately, we will have the experience of disappointment. For children also, that's often the case. When children grow up, naturally they consider their parents to be the greatest. And when they become teenagers, they realize maybe not. And then they rebel. So, and then later on they realize, actually I should be grateful because despite all their difficulties, they still take care of me. And then you develop some gratitude because you realize you're also not perfect. But yes, in material relationships, the tendency is to become frustrated, and one conclusion is then, okay, no relationships. All persons, all relationships lead to frustration, so I better give up. And this line of Rupa Goswami is trying to prove and show that the Lord has the ability to fulfill everyone's needs, and even the Lakshmis, serving him simultaneously. In the Brahma Samhita, we also hear Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam. Thousands of Lakshmis are simultaneously serving the Lord. So another example of this is, of course, the rasa dance, and also when Krishna is taking lunch with his friends. Krishna is taking lunch with his friends, is sitting in the middle. They're sharing their lunch boxes, which they get, from their parents when they go out to take care of the cows. And all the children have the sensation or real vision that the Lord is looking at them. And they're directly, so they're all simultaneously, Krishna is looking at all of them simultaneously in all directions. Or in the rasa dance, he's dancing with all the gopis at the same time. So his ability to fulfill unlimited relationships and reciprocate accordingly is akila, is complete, endless, limitless. Yes, so I'll stop here. Maybe there are some questions, comments, doubts, anything. Yes. Rajat, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice lecture. You started the lecture with the definition of demigods and the issues we have in India, also here at the temple. So when you meet people who object the supremacy of Krishna and come to these points that, okay, why Shiva, Ganesha or other demigods are not so welcomed in ISKCON, how do we deal with such situations? How shall we talk to these devotees or people if you encounter them?
So it's not true that they're not welcome as real persons. So that's the first point. Then the second point is that they are more than welcome. Srila Prabhupada in London, there's a famous story. He said, did you see Brahma and Narada were here? There was this one of the first big kirtans in the temple. I think it was the inauguration of Radharana and Ishvara. And then Srila Prabhupada said that they should put on the altar 2 cushions, 2 seats for Brahma and Narada Muni, because they will come regularly. And they're still doing it, in Radharana and Ishvara temple. There's 2 additional seats on the side, in the altar for Narada Muni and Brahma to take their place. So they are welcome, and I would say it's partially because of Christian upbringing, which tends to be exclusive. Semitic traditions tend to be exclusive. it's either or, and it's us and them, our God and their God, But we understand that they're all real persons, and they have a specific relationship with the Lord. And they, there's many chapters about Lord Shiva in the Shrimad-Bhagavatam, and so on and so forth. And also Ganesha, is here at the entrance, in our temple also. He's considered to be a great devotee of Lord Nrsingadev. And in the Nectar of Devotion also, there's a few sections about Lord Ganesha, explaining how he removes obstacles, and also we can take shelter of Lord Ganesha to remove obstacles in our spiritual life. It doesn't have to be that Lord Ganesha is only, there to remove material obstacles. So I think these are the two main things, but the most important, the two, you could say, basic things, but the most important thing is, because there is this, you could say, idea or a misconception that it's that ISKCON, or specifically ISKCON, is like a Christian version of Hinduism, and so also, and they reject all the other gods, no God beside me, something like that, that also ISKCON is like that. And that's a very strong perception in India by some sections, but clearly it's not. If you study the Madhva Sampradaya, they are much more radical than ISKCON. They are much more, only Krishna. They even say that all the demigods are actually Krishna, and they're Krishna forms actually. So they. So the point is, it's not an external intrusion into Vedic or Vedic tradition or Sanatana Dharma. It is there in the in the Bhagavatam. It is there in the Bhagavad Gita. So like that. And there's a very famous lecture. I heard it very long time ago. Hridayananda Maharaj was in South India, and he was I forgot which verse exactly he was reading from the Bhagavad Gita, and he was making this point very clear. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he makes a very clear distinction in the Bhagavad Gita. So, the point that we should emphasize is not an external intrusion into Sanatana Dharma. It is there already, in Vedic traditions. So ISKCON is not, Christianized version of Sanatana Dharma. It is, one form of Sanatana Dharma, Vaishnava traditions. Generally, you could say around 70% of Hinduism is Vaishnava, anyways. But of course, out of those 70%, I don't know how many are like traditional practitioners, not so many probably, or not as many. And yes, so it's not the idea that and the other point is also that, of course, in the respective Puranas, you will find a claim for supremacy also of Devi, or supremacy of Lord Shiva, So it's not that only the Vaishnavas are claiming supremacy, So then you can basically, rationally sit down and discuss, And there are stories also, where Bhrigu Muni, famous story, it's a traditional story, who is supreme, Among the rishis and sages, they discuss, who is supreme, And they conclude it's Vishnu, So, this is what I would say. Yes.
Question is that when I was in Vrindavan, I met this Mayavadi student that I had some discussions with him about this same exact topic of Brahman realization. And as a rebuttal for his arguments, I presented this famous verse from Bhagavatam, Ahuya Krishna which says that when one realizes the Brahman realization, one attains the Brahman realization, he still has to, he still has to fall down. So I said, it's clearly written that even though one is situated in Brahman realization, because the soul's nature is Anandamaya Prasad, he has to fall down to the material world back again. And for this claim of mine, his rebuttal was that no, it's the Paramadam that's said in this verse is actually the heavenly planets and not the Brahman realization, because if one reaches the Brahman realization, he has no reason to fall down, he is in Ananda. So that's how they twist and try to get away, but there seems to be a no end to this debate or conversation, because what I'm trying to prove, his point, he's trying to escape, just saying that, oh, the Paramadam is not actually the Brahman, it's just the heavenly planet, so obviously he'll have to fall down to the material world. So yeah, so there are these nuances, critical points. So how do you, in your experience, want to...
There's this very famous story of when Srila Prabhupada was discussing also with his disciples, and he said, Srila Prabhupada very often liked to make role plays, So he told his disciples, you are the Mayavadis, and I am the Vaishnava, and we are discussing now. And the first point, which is very important to understand, the thread of life, in Vedic tradition, there is an extremely lively discussion between all the different sampradayas, and there's many, historical, big events, when Shankaracharya traveled throughout India and, by defeat and discussion, introduced Vedic tradition against the Buddhists, for example. And nowadays there's very few Buddhists in India, and they're mainly outside of India. And later on also Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, this tradition of discussion was very, very alive. That means that, and it's supported, and encouraged also. And there's a few stories of, I'll go a little bit on Ramanujacharya, where he was discussing with, I don't know if it was his original guru, Jadava Prakash, or somebody else, but there's a very heated discussion between Ramanujacharya and, and these discussions were like public events, like in America it's the big bowl, for most people it's the, I don't know, football World Cup or something, In traditional India it was these discussions, what do you call it? Shastra? Shastras, yeah. So it's like great Digvijayas, undefeated thinkers and philosophers, representative of a certain tradition, would meet the representative of another tradition. So everybody's like, wow, clash of giants, And then everybody would gather and wanted to hear, what they're going to discuss, who's going to be victorious. And then whoever was victorious in discussion, and of course it was all based on Nyaya, on logic, Nyaya was the logic common ground. And whoever was victorious, or whoever was defeated, let's say, had to surrender himself and his disciples to this new tradition, or to this winning tradition. So that's, you could say, a civilized way of spreading traditions. And in one of these instances, Ramanujacharya was being hit by one argument of the other, really sharp arguments, because if you've ever been on a, because very often people give up, there's 2-3 exchanges, and then you're like, and it's like it hits your ego much deeper than any arrow could hit, So Ramanujacharya was, trying to, prove Vaishnava Siddhanta, but the arguments were really good, They were so like, and he was you could say maintaining his composture, but in reality it was like full on, And this was after many days, so I think, I don't know how many, maybe 7th day or so. And so the day was over, and they were to meet the next day for the next round of of argument. And of course Ramanujacharya went to take shelter of, I think, Ranganath, and was praying to the deity and performing his evening sadhana, etc. And then next morning after his sadhana, again they met and sat in front of each other, and the opponent just surrendered to Ramanujacharya. So everybody's like, what? What happened, Yesterday he was like, everybody could see, he was winning, against Ramanujacharya. And the next morning, he just surrendered to Ramanujacharya. So then he explained why. He said, yesterday I like everything I had, and everything I didn't have and I somehow realized I had, I shot at you, and I was sure you would be like devastated, and the next morning you would come and surrender to me. But when I saw you today morning, you were so fulfilled and happy And, not at all finished, Then I realized, I want that shelter that you have. So that was the shelter of the lotus feet of Ranganath, That's even he lost, philosophically speaking, at what point. His ability to recover and to take shelter and find comfort, in the Lord, at the end was the real argument that convinced the opponent. And another example of Srila Prabhupada, when he was making this role plays, he would win, of course, as a Vaishnava. So that his disciples said, okay, let's swap, Of course the Vaishnava's philosophy is higher, Of course you will win, Let us be the Vaishnavas and you are the Mayavadi, And Srila Prabhupada convinced them that Mayavadi is actually better.
Thank you for an interesting class. When you explained these higher and lower planetary systems, and there is a Bhumandala in the middle, I always understood there is a 7 higher planetary systems, 7 lower, and Bhumandala in the middle. But like recently, I heard in the class that it's like 6 that we are on Bhumandala, and there are 6 higher planetary systems. So I get confused. Do you know? Can you clarify this?
We have to look it up. I'm not sure.
Maybe somebody else.
But for sure it's 14 in total.
Yeah.
So either 7 up, 7 down, and we're in the middle. But it would make sense, because if we are 7 up, 7 down, and we're in the middle, it would be 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 6 up.
But we can look it up, and there's in the Brahma Samhita, there's Goloka chart, and there's each one is mentioned one after the other. Yes, but I wouldn't know exactly how it's if Bhumandala counts to the middle and then 6 above, or it's 7 above and Bhumandala and then 6 below. That you have to look up. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Somebody else maybe know about it.
It's kind of related to this question, because I was asking myself, the middle planets, you said it's like several middle planets, or is the Earth the only middle planet?
No, there are many.
There are many?
Yeah.
Out of the 14?
No, the Bhumandala, it's a plane. The way the Vedas described it is that they describe the planets as dvipas, as islands, and the space is the ocean. So in Bhumandala there are many dvipas, many different islands or planets for sure. Yeah. So according to the Vedas, certainly we're not the only planet which is populated. There's living entities everywhere. Anything else? Grantaraj Shrimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.